Hey everyone, so this is the visual aid for the AR navigation project procedures. So we're just going to walk through the experiment and make sure you have a clear understanding of what's going on. But in all else fails, make sure to read Taryn's well put together guide here and refer to this if there's any questions or any misconceptions. This is really well laid out and very detailed in what you should do in your experiment. So let's go ahead and get started. Your desktop will look something like this. Main thing to know is these three shortcuts that are going to be clustered together, off centered from the shortcuts we have on the left side of our monitor. There's three of them, so let's go ahead and walk through which they mean. So on the far left is the build. So that means this is where our Unity app executable is. It's this .exe file. So this actually starts up the Unity project and the experiment itself. The data folder is where all of the output data is going to be placed. It's going to be all docx files that's going to be put here. So once the experiment's over, it'll be like five or so text files here with the subject number and what they are. Finally, the RS companion. So this is the application that runs the DRT. So we need to make sure we have this open and running for the experiment. So let's go ahead and walk through the DRT itself. So um, before anything, we need to get the subject used to the DRT. So to do that, we want to go ahead and tape it onto, or have them tape it onto their clavicle, right onto their skin, and we're going to explain to them what the DRT is, how they're going to respond to it. And so to get the DRT up and running, so you click on the RS companion, it pulls up this application window. Down below will be a graph, and this will be there if you have the DRT plugged in. I don't have it plugged in, but if I did, there'd be a graph right here. So let's go ahead and name our file. So this is just going to be our subject number, so whatever convention we end up using. So I'm going to do like S00_Q because for this demonstration, we're going to be using Qs. Now we're going to hit create. And now default, it should open up our data folder previously, but if not, a way to get to it is go to desktop. You'll find the shortcuts close to the top here. And then we're going to go to the data folder, hit select. And now it's ready to go. So once you hit this play button, the DRT will start vibrating and you'll be able to respond to it using the button. So we'll have it taped onto them and then we'll go ahead and start it. And then down below, the graph will be updating in real time on when it buzzes and what their response was. So while this is happening, they're getting used to it. Let's go ahead and get the executable up and going. So I don't have SteamVR open or Steam itself open right now. So this is going to be exactly how it happens whenever you do it for the first time. Now I have SteamVR open. What we want to do is to right click onto the headset itself and hit display VR view. So what this does, this actually mimics what the user is seeing on the inside of the headset completely. So even though the application's running and it's waiting for it to start, we're in the Steam waiting room and you can see exactly what they see. Now, if yours doesn't look like this, don't worry, because in the menu, there's pretty much two different options. There's going to be a normal, a monitor-like version, and then there's going to be this weird both eyes version. Both are fine. And now The important thing, the reason we have this open, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the controller, is that a common thing for subjects to have happen is that they press the system button on the controller or on the headset itself, and it pops up this menu, and they think they broke the environment. Not a big deal, but we can't really tell that in Unity unless you have a really keen eye. So having this open allows you to know whether or not they hit that button and what's going on, and if anything weird is happening in the headset that's not displaying in Unity, this is the way to see it. So anyway, if this ever happens, just have them hit the system button, or you come over here and hit the system button for them. The main thing we're using this for is for the IPD. So once you measure the subject's IPD, you're able to change it here on using the headset itself. So I'm turning the knob on the headset, and it's going to pop open the IPD there. So let me go ahead and change views so you get a way better look at it. So this is without me putting the headset on. I'm just turning the knob itself, and I'm using the VR view to see what numbers are popping up. So we're able to do this with the experimenter or the subject feeling safe and comfortable during COVID, and that way you don't have to clean it or do anything like that, or even put it on or have them do it themselves. So this will be a much easier way to cut out that difficult part of the experiment, interacting with the subject. Now, I'm going to swap us over to the other monitor. So this is what the application itself is going to look like when you start it up. So this is a entering menu. So let's type in the same thing that we did for our RS companion here. So S_Q and the experimenter name. I'm just using my last name for this one. And handedness, so this is going to be what hand they hold the VR controller in, and the other hand they'll be using the RT. So for this instance, I'll be right-handed, and we're going to always use City 1 for the first for our first 10 people here, and then we're going to be using Qs as well. But just to show you, it's a drop down, and it's easy to swap these around. But let's go ahead and enter. So here we are in our training environment. And before they fully get into the headset, you want to explain to them what the navigation system is going to be like. So it's going to be a little different, even if they're used to VR. So you can see here that little down on the controller is where my thumb is currently located. So when I press forward, I'm going to walk forward in the direction I'm looking. So if I look over here, I walk forward that way. Over here, I walk forward this way. And if I look straight ahead, and I put my thumb over to the left side and press down, I'm going to strafe to the left. And same thing for any of the diagonals. So, and I can also move my thumb around while I'm pressing the button down, and that will move me in a circle. But what's important during this is that even though you're moving, you're able to look around. So it's only, your head only matters what direction you're looking on the very instant you press it down. So now you're able to look around freely without changing your movement. And this, I guess heading direction will reset every time you let go of the touchpad. So you're able to reset your heading very quickly. So, talking more about the experiment itself. On the right side, so this is depending on your left-handed or right-handed, but if you're right-handed, it will show up on the right side of the controller. Left-handed will show up on the left side of the controller. A little clipboard of little directions and reminders of what we just talked about, and as well as talking about what the menu button is used for, which is the Rolo button. It's you can't actually see it being pressed, but the trigger button is used for um, targets. So this is a quick reminder down there, as well as bring their attention to the compass at the top of the screen, or I guess top of their eyes, as well as the what street they're on as well. So this is Training Avenue that we're located on. Another important thing is that guy down there is what a what cues will look like in this experiment. So it's important to know that this is a intentional sort of thing. It's a very strange thing to see because there's no shadow, there's no light gradient on it. It looks like a 2D object, although it's actually 3D. And it's because it's being rendered through walls, and you can see through objects. So bring their attention to this and explain to them that this is what a queue is, and this is where target locations will look like, as well as like given locations on the map. So the given locations will be this cylinder. The target locations will be listed as cubes. So go ahead and have them look at it, and this will be like kind of similar to how it will look on target objects if this street sign was a actual target. So you'll see now that we're in an intersection, the street name is now intersection. You'll see street names are right here, so that's Training Avenue. And then, well, get going. Sorry, I'm seated right now. So if you get sufficiently far enough away from the intersection, it will change. Now it's simulator drive. There's a distinction between the type of roads that they're on. So for this, roads facing this direction, being east to west or west to east, those will be drives, and then north to south will be avenues. This changes in the actual experiment, but this is something for people to get used to in case that they don't realize the different naming conventions. So for example, in this upcoming experiment that we're doing right here with cues, there will be presidents and states. So presidents might be east to west, while states will be north to south. And in case they're not familiar with the U.S. presidents or the U.S. states, they can distinguish this between drive and avenue, or road and street. So here are some slight obstacles for them to navigate through to get used to the navigation scheme, so they can easily avoid obstacles like this. Use just slightly tilting their thumb, as well as being able to slalom easily. So make sure that the subject itself is okay and they're not suffering from any simulator sickness, because this is a rather intensive movement scheme for people who haven't done VR before. So it's very important that they are comfortable throughout the entire experiment. If they show any signs of simulator sickness, get them out before it gets any worse. Because once it starts and they fight through it, it's going to be really rough on them. So the subject will get to this wall, and this wall reads, "Are you ready to continue the experiment? Inform the experimenter that you are ready." So, as the experimenter, once you're informed that they're okay and they don't need any more practice, we're going to disable this wall. If they do need practice, just tell them to turn around and redo the course and walk around a little bit more. But once they're ready, come back to this wall. And what's important here is that to continue, is that we need to press enter on the keyboard, but not just the normal enter you usually press. The enter that's on the keypad, the far right side of the keyboard. So we press that, it goes away, and there is a finish line. So once they cross this finish line, it starts the actual experiment. Another thing to note, if you hold up the controller and you don't see the clipboard, but you hit the system button, and the system button shows that this controller is in fact tracked, it's probably because you have a controller plugged into the wall, and that one's being tracked, and that's being listed as the controller that should have the clipboard. So that's just a quick troubleshooting thing. If there's multiple controllers plugged in or turned on, the thing to do is make sure only one is on and make sure you're using the correct one. Anyway, proceeding, we're going to go across this finish line. We'll have a little stutter, and then boom, we're in the experiment. Have them note that right below them is home. So this is the location that they need to know where it is, this red circle. They're going to have to navigate back to it after they find all of the targets. See here that our first target is the Porsche, and then our Volo targets is a backpack, a assault rifle, and a mailbox. So let's go ahead and quickly navigate to all these locations. So you'll see up top, this is Roosevelt Street now, and this will correspond to one of the presidents. We'll see up here, once we change roads, it will be a state. I think it's State Road. Maybe this is Ohio coming up. At every intersection, there's also street signs. It tells you Roosevelt Street and Ohio Road. Another thing to note, whenever they press the trigger or the Volo button, there's going to, which is the menu button, there's going to be a haptic feedback signaling to the user that, hey, we got your signal press. Here's the Porsche. We're going to go ahead and look at it and pull the trigger, and there's our target queue. Target's going to now change to the ambulance, so we're going to go ahead and navigate to the ambulance. You'll see out in the distance here the two permanent queues that are given to the user. The one ahead of me, the green, is the helicopter, and the blue is the gazebo. So these are intrinsically different by it being the cylinders and the targets being cubes. So actually, there's a Volo up here, so we'll go ahead and look at that. Make sure to repeatedly check in on the subject to make sure they are still feeling okay throughout this experiment. They're able to take any breaks that they need. If it fogs up, they can take off the headset. If they feel too hot, they can take off the headset. Give them a slight break. Here's the Volo. Here's a Volo object. We're going to press the Volo button. Controller is going to vibrate and signal to the subject, hey, we got your input. So that's even going to happen whenever they think they found a bolo object, but they actually haven't. So if I thought this car was a bolo and I pressed it, it will still give you that haptic feedback, even though it is not, in fact, a bolo object. It's just to let the subject know, hey, we got your button press. The margin for error for bolos and targets are actually quite high when you find them. So do not worry if they think they, if you think that they missed it when they thought they should have gotten it. It is really hard to find a bolo or be able to see a bolo and not be within the range to find it in the data collection. Same thing for targets. So for targets, they're able to be like 10 meters away, and as long as they're looking at it, they can um, they can report it. So there's another bolo right there. So right here, would still work, but definitely ask the subject to get close to it. We're still looking for that ambulance. So see now that we're actually back on Roosevelt Street, so this is the starting street where the home location is. So hopefully that is going to be a helpful sign for or helpful navigational tool for subjects to use. There's our ambulance. Now we have the bus left. Go ahead and navigate to the bus. So once there's only 3 targets that the subject has to find. Once they find the third target, they're going to be instructed to go home. At this point, instructed the subject to return back to the starting location, as well as to ignore any bolos that they encounter all along the way on the path home. This is to prevent the subject from trying to win our experiment by finding all the bolos that they can by not returning home until after they feel like they found every single bolo in the city. So we're just going to keep going. Another thing to note is that these fog barriers are actually physical barriers. They're This is the end of the world for all the for the subject. There won't be any um, navigation outside or into the fog. There's actually an invisible wall there. Another thing to note is that there are alleyways in between several of these buildings. I don't think we're going to see any right now, but there's nothing inside these alleyways. Instruct to the user that there's nothing hidden in back alley streets or inside courtyards. Everything can be on the main roads. So as we approach the bus here, just a reminder that once they find all the target objects, they need to return home and then ignore all Bolo objects on the way home. This will be reflected in the clipboard if they ever need to. I'll refer back to the instructions. Just like so. All right, so we're going to return back to the home location, and then we're going to start the pointing task. And once the pointing task's over, the experiment is concluded as far as VR goes. There are Qualtrics surveys that they need to take before and after this experiment, as well as the PsychoPy, the PsychoPy portion of the experiment that happens after the VR portion. So that's one thing I've neglected to mention is that before they do this VR experiment, they need to fill out the questionnaire as demographic questionnaire as well as the simulator sickness questionnaire, so the SSQ, and make sure that they're feeling okay before we put them into VR itself. And then we're going to have them fill out an SSQ after the experiment, as well as the PsychoPy study. Just to note that the height of the individual is going to vary from this video. This is actually recorded about waist height, so that's why it looks like I am about the size of a car tire. So rounding up to the home location, what's going to happen is that the instructions are going to be, hey, wait for the experimenter to do their thing, and then we're going to start the next part of the experiment. While during this delay, all the cues will be turned off, so they can't just cheat and point at the red dot on the screen. But while this is happening, instead of removing the device, what you want to do is head over the RS companion and hit pause. So I'll stop the vibration. And then the subject is prompted to point at the location of this target using this red line. So it doesn't matter, or let's point this way. It doesn't matter what they do tilting up and down. It's just this plane of movement that matters. So if they were to point, here and then straight up here, and also straight down, all this will be the same value as pointing straight ahead. It's just that's to just help make data collection much easier and knock out any individual differences from how they point. Anyway, so we're going to click through this. After 3, they're going to teleport to the next one. And then after 3, they're going to teleport to the next one. 3, they're going to teleport to the next one until it's ended. Now, at this point, you're able to turn off the environment by hitting Alt F4, or you can tab out and close it through Task Manager, or close it through right-clicking and close window. There's several ways to go about it. You can also close it by hitting close SteamVR as well. Make sure to end the experiment of the RS companion. Then you'll see in the data folder is that we have all these text files along with this experiment folder, which is going to be where the DRT data will be found. All right, so that's going to conclude this.